presenting this.
Middle school.
All right, and here we go. So this is our third day of working on the Kurinuki box, and I feel like we're making really good progress. We have such nice long class periods that you guys have had a ton of time to get everything done. So today we're going to do some of the final steps, but I'm not going to have it due today because I know that there are some people that are going to be a little bit behind. So the due date for this is tomorrow. So you'll record your 360-degree video tomorrow. You'll write your artist statement tomorrow. It'll be due tomorrow by 3 o'clock. But some of you may finish it today, and that's okay. What I'll probably do is tomorrow I'll introduce the new project, which is the mug project, and you'll finally go back to working with stoneware clay, and you'll have the option to do it hand-built, or people who are here, you'll have the option to do it on the wheel. So that intro will be tomorrow, but then the lidded box will be also due tomorrow. So you'll get the rest of class period tomorrow to work on it. Okay, so can you put phones away for now, please? Please and muchas gracias. Thank you. Okay, so just to go over one more time what kind of the overarching things I'm looking for in this project. This box must be carved using the Kurinuki technique, where you're starting with a solid chunk of raccoon and then carving it out. The wall should be consistent thickness, and that's really what we did yesterday. We used the ribbon tool to carve it out until the walls, all of them, universally, top, bottom, lid, sides, everything, were around 1/4 of an inch thick. If you didn't do that yesterday, you'll continue and you'll finish doing that today, because you have to have that done before you move on to the step we're going to do today. And that step for today is to add a flange that makes the lid fitted and a creative handle that makes that matches with the overall look of the piece, or is an interesting focal point that goes with the overall piece. And then another thing I'm looking for, all the marks, designs, and the overall aesthetic looks purposeful, balanced, and unified throughout the form. And that's something that we're really working on throughout the entire thing. So there are other things I'm going to be grading you on, like neatness and is your name on it and things like that. But these are the things that we can kind of control up to today. And tomorrow we'll talk about finishing. All right, so people at home, remember, and actually people who are here as well, this flange that you're making today, and then the handle, which is called a finial, that's the official name for it, those need to also be made out of raku clay. And so you're also going to need raku slip today. So you're going to be making just a really tiny portion of raku slip. You won't need very much of it at all. But just a reminder, especially for people at home, you can make sure you're using your extra raku that you scooped out from the center. Hopefully that's still pliable. People who are here, hopefully you have a bag of raku clay that you scooped out from the center of your piece yesterday, and that's still pliable. If not, I do have a little bit of extra raku that you can use if you need it. All right, so just a reminder about that. We're still using raku clay. Now this is what a flange looks like. This is what I'm going to show you in the demo today. This flange sticks up. This one happens to be sticking up from the box. We're going to make our flange sticking down from the lid. So it goes down inside the body of the pot, and it keeps that lid fitted, so the lid isn't going to slide around. And right now your lid probably isn't sliding around because your clay is still sticky. But once the clay is dry and fired, it will slide around if it doesn't have that flange. So that's an important thing for you to learn how to do. And I'll show you that in a bit. The other thing you're adding today is a finial, a creative finial. So that finial should be not just a ball on top, all right? I don't want to see any little pebble handles. Not just a simple loop on the top, because that's kind of boring too. So I want you to think, what is a finial that either goes with the overall look of your piece, or what is a finial that's just a really interesting little focal point? In the video yesterday, if you recall, the artist sculpted a beetle to be sitting on the top of her box, and that was her finial. So you can make it a creature, you can make it an interesting little design. You do not have to add feet like that, just so you know. These are examples of finials, not like how your overall jar should look necessarily. This person added a fish. This person added a squiggle. This person added what is very close to a pebble handle, which I said I did not want. But they made their pebble handle and kind of paddled it and beat it up, much like the pot was sort of shaped. And so at least that shape up at the top looks similar to the rest of the pot, like the textures are the same. And so it has a nice unity there. So creativity is like completely up to you. Like whatever creative handle you can come up with that will be scored, slipped. Melding is optional for putting that handle on the top. So these are this is your assignment, these are your steps for today. I will leave this up on the screen for you so you don't have to memorize it all right now. If you didn't finish yesterday, finish your carving today. That's important. Carve it out so everything's 1/4 of an inch thick. Feel between your fingers so you can get a sense of how thick that wall is in all the parts, including the bottom, including the lid. Then you're going to roll a coil of raku clay, and we're going to flatten it out, and that's going to become the flange. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to fit it inside the box, just so we know what amount of space that flange needs to take up. Then we're going to pick up that flange, and we're going to slip and score it and meld it inside the lid. So we're going to fit it inside the box. We're going to attach it to the lid, and I'll show you that in a second. Then once the flange, I'm going to get these mixed up all the time, flange, finial, both start with F. Once your flange is attached, flip your lid over and maybe hair dry that flange for a little bit just to make sure it's not going to sink under the weight of the lid. And then flip it over, and then you're going to figure out what is your finial. What's that creative little thing going to be that you add to the top that is going to allow us to pick up that lid or be that focal point on top of the lid. Now, I know some people are cutting spaces in their lid because they want the incense smoke to come out through the lid, and that's totally great. So then, you know, if you have those spaces up there, maybe what can you add that's kind of asymmetrical in its placement? Maybe it's not going to be right in the center. Maybe your handle, your finial, is going to be more like this lid right here, where these little crystals are asymmetrically placed. They're placed more to one side than the other. And so that would be a solution. If you have other designs like cutouts happening in your pot, think about what you can add that maybe won't be right in the middle of the pot. And then you're going to join it using raku slip, and I'll talk more about that in the demo. Then you're going to go back and smooth the inside of your box and the inside of your lid with a wet paintbrush. Finish carving your foot if you need to. Get your initials in the bottom. And then snap a picture for today of just your lid. So your picture for today should look something like this, where I can see both the flange that you added at the bottom and the creative finial that you added at the top. Okay, that's your photo for today. I don't need to see the box today, just the lid. So I'm going to have you guys come over to table 9 so I can show you some of those steps a little bit closer up. So come on over. Oh, before I do that. Freeze that there. Stop sharing. Pin. Okay. All right. You guys see okay back there? You okay? Okay. All right. So I did not finish carving yesterday, so I just finished it today. I finished carving out the entire inside. I felt between my fingers. I felt where it still felt kind of thick. And this is one tip that I have for you based on what I saw yesterday when I was helping some of you. If your form gets wider at the bottom, be aware that you're going to have to carve kind of down into that wider spot, because a lot of people had really great thickness up here at the top of the walls, but the bottom of their walls were really thick yet. So just be aware of that. You know, feel those areas, see if they need a little bit more carving today. And I also had to carve out my lid a little bit more. And then I lost my key as I was doing my carving. Remember, a key is 2 little dots that line up, so you always know which way your lid goes on, okay? So I had to redo that key. All right, so now I have a little bit of raku clay that I wedged yesterday after I did my carving. So I'm just gonna roll a coil, and I'm gonna make it, I don't know, about the thickness of my pinky finger, I guess. If you have a rolling pin at home, kids at home, you should have a rolling pin. You can use a rolling pin to do this. Otherwise, you can just flatten it out by hand too, like I just did. I just used the heel of my hand and I kind of inchwormed it across there. Then I need to measure this flange so that it fits inside the box. Holy smokes, that is just the right size. Wow, it's almost like I've done this before. All right, so actually, that fits really perfectly. So I just placed it inside there just to get the measurement right. Okay, and so now I'm gonna make sure that my key still lines up, and I'm going to take my flange. Yeah, that flip didn't work very very well, but the placement of it isn't going to be a super big deal. But I know that the size should be about right. So I'm going to set that finial, or sorry, that flange over there. And I'm going to get some raku slip. So to make your own raku slip, like just a small portion of it, you can just take a little bit of your raku clay, put it on a tray, get a fork, and just kind of get that fork, dip it in some water, and then just kind of rough up that raku chunk, and you'll eventually, it'll kind of melt down and it'll become a reasonable slip, okay? So for people at home, that's how you're gonna make your slip. People who are here, I do actually have a bucket of slip that you can use. But you can also make your own slip. You saw how quick that happened, so it's not a big deal to make your own. So now I'm scoring inside the lid of my jar. So I'm dipping it in the slip and scoring simultaneously. And then I have to do that on my flange as well. This is one area where if this is kind of dry already, and obviously this is new fresh clay, those are going to shrink at different rates if they're really, you know, tremendously different stages. So scoring and slipping them really well is going to be important so that they truly stay together. So now I've placed it to the inside of my lid, and I'm going to support my lid on the outside by kind of cupping it with my hands there. And I'm going to meld that flange downward. It's kind of awkward to get my hands inside there. You can use a wood knife also, the spoon side of your wood knife. People at home, you have popsicle sticks that you can use for this. And so that works to meld as well. The outside, I'm not really gonna meld too much. I'm just gonna take a wet paintbrush and I'm gonna do a little bit of gentle smoothing just so that things look good. Where that seam was, where my flange came together, I wanna get rid of that. So I'm just gonna meld that a little bit. I'll do a little paintbrush on the inside here. And now, moment of truth, I wanna see if this fits inside. Although, I just put so much moisture on here that there is a big risk that when I put this on here, the lid might stick. So I have to be kind of aware of that. Maybe I would even like hair dry this a little bit or put it outside for a little bit. But I'm gonna be risky. Okay, it doesn't fit. All right, so it's not going down into where it needs to. But luckily, that's an easy fix. You just push that little flange around. Uh-oh, something fell. Push that little flange around. In my case, it really needs to get set in a lot. It's popping out or it's too wide. So I'm going to use my fingers to pinch that flange inward to get it to the point where the lid is not too tight. There we go. Okay, now because it's so wet inside there, I definitely don't want to leave it on there very long. I'm going to take it back out again, and I'm going to let this sit to the side. I'm going to let this sit upside down for a little bit, and I'm going to start making my finial. So I've actually already made a couple finials here, and I'm going to have you guys tell me which one you want me to put on. So for one of them, I used the same tools that I did to texturize this box. I used that strainer paddle and then the stick paddle, and I made a loop, which I said I didn't want you to do, but I made a loop that's not just a typical kind of rainbow loop, and I used the same textures that I made on the box. So that was one of my solutions, and if I did that kind of handle, I think I would want to place it slightly off to one side. So it's kind of asymmetrical like that. Or the other handle that I made, this kind of reminded me of a succulent cactus a little bit. So I made a little flower that would sit on the top. I'm trying to tip it so you can see it. So I thought that would be kind of a fun handle as well. So what one do you want to see me put on there? The flower? All right, great. So again, I'm going to use the same slip that I made earlier. And wherever my finial, my handle is going to go, I'm just going to score and slip, score and slip. Again, really important that this is a strong connection. And then to get it to stick on there, because I'm not going to meld it, I'm just going to use my, I'm going to use the tip of my paintbrush to put a little bit of force to really make sure that that flower sticks on there. Okay, and I might add more to my flower. This was kind of just like the big portions of it that I made first to let it get kind of leather hard. And so now, again, this is a little bit too wet for me to really technically be doing this, but I want to just show you the final result. So here's my final box. Okay, so this needs a lot more smoothing, a lot more cleanup, although I wouldn't technically do a lot more cleanup on the outside because you don't want to lose the cool textures that you got on the outside. So when I talk about smoothing, I'm mainly talking about smoothing up the inside, smoothing up the rim, finishing carving the bottom and getting your initials in the bottom, and then you can smooth that up a little bit. But when it comes to the part that you paddled, you don't need to do a lot of smoothing unless it's really bad, unless you got fingerprints all over it, and then you can do a little bit of really gentle smoothing. But we just don't want to lose that cool character that it has, that wabi-sabi character. So those are your tasks for today. I want you to spend a lot of time making that flange fit well. I want you to spend a lot of time making that finial look cool and creative, attach them well, and then don't do what I did. Dry things out before you put them together so they don't run the risk of sticking, okay? People who are here, you can go off and get to work. Extra raku clay is on the wedging table. All other tools are over here. People who are at home, stay tuned for just a moment.
So after the second hour, I had to meet with my groups manager, and she did give me an email saying.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. I don't mind. Mm-hmm.